Hello everyone! On today's episode of Terrius Talks Tech, I thought I'd give you all a small glimpse into my editing process. I'm still fairly new to the video editing process. Before I started on YouTube, I really hadn't done any video editing at all before. I use three main programs for my video editing. When I first started on YouTube, I purchased Cyberlink PowerDirector 15, which came in a bundle that included Audio Director 7. I used both of these programs for the majority of my work. I used PowerDirector 15 for many months. It was basically the only application I used for the first 25 videos. I still use PowerDirector to do all of my title work and my thumbnails, and usually to tweak the visual settings, so like the brightness and the contrast and white balance and all of that, just because it's very straightforward to do those things with. The primary video editing program that I use these days, though, is DaVinci Resolve 14, which is in public beta. It's a very powerful nonlinear video editor, and it's the closest thing I think I will ever have to Adobe Premiere for workflow. I much prefer the trimming function in Resolve to that of PowerDirector, as it lets you use the razor blade tool to cut the video fairly simply. It's much quicker for trimming out anything that I need to remove from the videos, any errors or coughs or whatnot. The clip speed adjustment tool is also very handy. It seems to produce a much smoother sped up clip than the PowerDirector version. It lets you view the playback of that sped up clip in real time no matter what speed you've set it to, whereas in PowerDirector, when you set it to the higher speeds, it has issues with playback. All of the clip thumbnails have live capabilities, so when you highlight over them, it shows you the different parts of the clip so that you can easily identify which clip is which. That comes in very handy. I usually work with 3 or 4 different clips, depending on how long my video was. I find matching up the audio and video from my cell phone, which is what I use to record my videos, and the audio from my Blue microphone is much easier with the DaVinci Resolve software, just because the waveforms on the timeline are much easier to see. They're much clearer, and they can zoom into a much greater detail than the PowerDirector. The other thing I like about the Resolve software is it has crossfading without moving the actual video clips, so you can set it to have 7 to 30 frames of crossover between 2 different clips, and you don't have to actually adjust the timeline or anything, and it doesn't mess with the audio like it does in PowerDirector. If you do that in PowerDirector, you have to manually actually overlap the clips, and in that case you have to manually edit the audio as well. So what I normally do is I start with Audio Director and I boost the volume of my audio clip from my Snowball microphone, and that's just because the microphone records at a fairly low decibel volume, and it can be fairly difficult to match up the waveforms from the phone and from the Blue microphone if I don't boost it first. Then I'll import all of the video clips and the audio clip into DaVinci Resolve, and I'll start cutting the video up and removing any pauses or unnecessary silences or even repeated statements. Then I'll also find the places that I want to fast forward the video, so parts where I'm either assembling a circuit or soldering or anything like that, where you basically can't hear me talk very well anyway because there's background noise going on. Sometimes I'll dub over certain parts in post-processing, but that's very rare these days. I will go back and merge all of the fast-forward clips, which I've removed the audio from already, and I'll turn them into a compound clip, usually named FF and then a number. Then I'll just use the speed adjustment to speed it up, and generally I set my fast-forward clips to 400%, but sometimes I will have a really exceptionally long clip that I will have to set at 800%. I have occasionally used 600% as well. Usually for a 30-minute raw clip, it takes me about an hour in Resolve to get it to a place that I'm happy with and that I'm willing to move on to the next stage, which is usually bringing it back to PowerDirector and adding the titles and other things to it. There have been a few occasions where I've had a 2-hour clip, and that's taken me 3 or 4 hours to get through all of that video and edit it down to a reasonable amount of time. I generally don't like my YouTube videos to be too long. I think the longest video I have is about 25 minutes, and unless the video is super interesting or super important, I generally try to keep it less than 15 minutes. I think anything over about 15 minutes gets a bit boring for you guys, so I generally try to keep it under 15 minutes if I can. Now, DaVinci Resolve has a ton of different features that I don't use, and that's simply because I haven't played around with them enough to understand them yet. It is a very capable video editor for sure. Once I'm ready, I deliver the video, which is DaVinci's version of rendering or producing the video. So when I render out from DaVinci Resolve, I render it in the best quality that I can. Then I use PowerDirector to bring it down to the correct bitrate for YouTube, which is 8 megabits per second for standard 1080p 30 frames per second videos. Generally, I'll set it at 10 megabits per second and let the YouTube post-processing do all of the down converting to 8 megabits per second. After I've finished with Resolve, I'll generally bring it into PowerDirector and I'll add the titles and anything else extra that I need to add to the video. Sometimes I'll add background music in PowerDirector if I haven't already added it through Resolve. I much prefer the audio editing functionality of PowerDirector and Audio Director over that of DaVinci Resolve, but only because I haven't really done much with it in DaVinci. It looks quite a bit more powerful than anything I could possibly need. I do really also like in Audio Director that it has the spectral frequency view of the waveform, which makes it a lot easier to remove annoying pops or clicks just by looking at the actual image of the waveform. I'll generally try and edit out some of the so's that I say because I tend to say so exceedingly often, and it's kind of annoying to me in post-processing when I hear myself constantly starting a sentence with so. And then the final step, once that's imported back into the video, is just to produce it out, make sure everything is working good, and upload it to YouTube. So I decided to use clips from my actual next video, which is going to be Tinkering with Terrius 25, I believe. It is the bistable operation of the 555 timer, so definitely keep an eye out for that. I hope you found this video interesting or helpful or at least somewhat amusing. If you have any questions or comments or ideas for future T3 videos, then be sure to leave them in the section below. Otherwise, you can email them to me or tweet them to me. If you did enjoy this video, then be sure to give it a thumbs up and perhaps even consider sharing it with your friends. If you haven't already, then be sure to subscribe to my channel. You can do that by clicking on the big Tinkering with Terrius logo in the middle of the screen, or even just down to the right should be a subscribe button. Now if you click the little bell icon, that will notify you every time there is a new video uploaded from my channel. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day.